Hope that's going to be a interesting topic for y'all because it's a very common entity, the allergic rhinitis in children. Not even a children, most of us as adults are experiencing the symptoms of allergic rhinitis almost every day. So hopefully a very important topic for everybody. Runny nose and sore throat. If you get these two entities, it's a very common complaint comes from children. Not even a children, even adults. It's really threatening these days because of the COVID-19 pandemic and because we all just scared of the runny nose and the sore throat. But this is a very common complaint. I think most of the children that goes to GP practice or even to the pediatrician who comes day-to-day life and just comes with this complaint of a runny nose and the sore throat. And I have seen most of the doctors in their practice, they attribute this to an infection and start to treat like an infection with the antibiotics and other relevant medication. So is it always an infection is a question. Runny nose, sore throat, sneezing, and always our the grandparents or the parents, they might say that right? So that is the usual statement that's made by our parents and the grandparents and their crowd. Is it allergy or cold? Is it allergy or cold? That's the question. And we should understand the difference of this allergy or a cold. Now just suppose now you are getting cold, that is upper respiratory tract infection most of the time due to virus, and you start in the morning just feeling of unwell, the body aches and sore throat and sneezing, and you are just getting a watery discharge, and towards the latter part of the day you are just getting increasing symptoms and then comes up with the fever. That could be just an infection due to a viral infection, viruses, or maybe even a bacteria. So that is the usual, the lay people say cold, hembidisawa. But suppose now a child complain in the morning, complain that my throat is a bit itchy, and then sneezing and comes a little bit of a nose is just a watery discharge. And towards the latter part of the day, like about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, and it becomes dry and he's just going to be free of symptoms, can we say that it is an infection? No, not at all. But most of our parents, they have a very bad habit. When the children just complains of a itchy throat or the sneezing or a wet nose, they straight away brings the children to the doctors to seek in medical advice. So it's another part of a bad habit from us. We always attribute it to an infection and we treat them with an antibiotic. So most of the mothers, they come and say, Dr. හැමදාම මේ බබාට සිංගෙඩි, හැමදාම මේ බබාට හෙම්බිරිස්සාව. කවදාවත් හොඳ වෙන්නේ නැහැ. බෙහෙත් ගන්නකොට හොඳ වෙනවා, then comes up again in a couple of days time. So it is just like a sustained symptoms every day. Can it be an infection? No, it is definitely an allergy. So it is very important to understand the difference between the allergy and the real infection before embarking into a treatment to our children. Allergic rhinitis is the most common chronic allergic disorder seen in pediatric population. The symptoms are diverse. Just above the neck, almost all our organs are involved. Could be nose, could be throat, a palate, eyes, ears. So just all organs just involved with this allergic rhinitis. Studies have conducted that untreated allergic rhinitis has a marked detrimental effect on children's learning and examination performance. Even there are few studies they have carried out that are evidence-based. Even with the itchy eyes, that is a rhinoconjunctivitis, if they keep on itching their eyes, and they probably get a visual impairment as well. So it's not that easy as we thought, because it just gives a lot of impact for their daily routines, their studies, their playing, and their visual acuity, and everything just affects. The impact is not that as soft we thought. This is a type of inflammation in the nose which occurs when the immune system overreacts to allergens in the air. Symptoms occur when you breathe in something you are allergic to, such as dust, animal dander, pollen, and there are so many trigger factors for allergic rhinitis, and it may differ from one person to the other, and some might respond to animal dander or a pollen, and other patient probably will tolerate them very well. Right? So it is quite different, and everybody, each patient needs to understand and what are my triggering factors for allergic rhinitis, and just trying to avoid those allergens or the triggering factor. Let's give an example. And somebody who lives in Gaul might have a features of allergic rhinitis. When he goes on a trip to Nuvarelia, he may not have symptoms. He may be very dry and very symptoms free, and quite active and normal. But somebody who comes in Nuvarelia having the less symptoms, when they comes to, or on the other hand, some people who are very free of symptoms in Gaul and dry area, when they move over to a cold climate like in Nuvarelia, they might get symptoms. So what does it mean? That the triggering factors are not the same of everybody, and it differs from one patient to the other. Some might the trigger or comes these allergic rhinitis features for a dust, and the other person might show the features for a cold, and or a cold bath or a breeze or a mist. So it's quite different. And some might respond triggers for a pollen, and even the if you actually take from months like in January to December, some children they are just coming with the symptoms in the April or May, and some people comes with the symptoms in November and December. So that actually reflects that the triggering factors are just varying from one person to the other. What is the pathophysiology? And it's very important to understand the pathophysiology before thinking the treatment for a child with the allergic rhinitis. There is an inflammation of the nasal mucosa with a complex response mediated by inflammatory cells and its chemical mediators. When a child is exposed to a specific allergen, there will be an aggregation of various inflammatory cells at the nasal mucosa, such as mast cells, neutrophils, eosinophils, T lymphocytes, and basophils. They release a lot of chemicals to the site. They are histamine and cysteinyl leukotrienes, mainly the LTC4 and the LTD4 are the potent leukotrienes, and the prostaglandins and kidneys. So these inflammatory mediators came to the site or the local site by these inflammatory cells trigger the actions. What are the actions exerted by these inflammatory mediators? They just gives the inflammation at the site, causing edema and the vasodilatation, and comes with a lot of secretions and smooth and with those symptoms, they get all these symptoms manifest due to the response of these inflammatory mediators. Histamine is responsible for a major symptoms such as rhinorrhea. Histamine just trying to increase the secretory cells and enhance the activity of the secretory cells, and it just comes with a lot of secretions in the nasal mucosa and sneeze and nasal itching, and the leukotrienes increases the airway resistance and increasing the vascular permeability. So the different chemicals act in a different way. And if you just talk about the classification of allergic rhinitis, it could be seasonal or it could be perennial. So what is seasonal? As I told you earlier, it is not throughout the year, and only a part of the certain months the child comes with the symptoms of allergic rhinitis, and certain months of the year the child is completely free of symptoms. Only just certain months they manifest with the symptoms. But perennial is not like that. It is usually just throughout the year the child comes with the symptoms. Usually the seasonal ones comes in the little big children, like bigger children, like a 6 years or more than the 6 years of age, and the perennial ones usually comes with the young children, and it usually just sustained throughout the year. So in addition to that, when we talk about the classification, so depending on the time period, we can say it's a seasonal or the perennial, or else like an intermittent or a persistent. If the child comes with the symptoms of less than 4 days per week or less than 4 consecutive weeks, it's called as intermittent allergic rhinitis. And more than 4 days per week or more than 4 consecutive weeks, we say it is a persistent allergic rhinitis. And then no sleep disturbance, no activity disturbance, and they can have a very good sleep. It is a mild symptoms. If somebody comes with a sleep disturbance, or they are unable to do their day-to-day activities, so they are called as a moderate or severe symptom. So this is again the same what I described earlier, just comes as in this classification of allergic rhinitis: intermittent, persistent, mild, and moderate to severe. I just want to further describe the mild one, that none of the following items are present: no sleep disturbance, no impairment of daily activities, leisure or schools, no impairment of school or work, no troublesome symptoms. It's a mild. If one of these are there, we call it as a moderate to severe allergic rhinitis. So what are the possible trigger factors? There are so many trigger factors: grass, pollens, dust mites, cockroaches, cigarette smokes, perfumes, molds, chemicals, cold weather, humidity, wind, air pollution, wood smoke, cat saliva. There's so many. And I think I have not included all possible trigger factors for allergic rhinitis. And these are few. And diet is a little doubtful statement, because there are certain, because in our country and most mothers, they have a belief, and if they eat සීතල කෑම කෑවොත් and ඇවිස්සෙනවා allergic rhinitis. That is the common belief that most of the mothers in our country, and they follow it actually for their children. And those who are having allergic rhinitis, they don't know even the taste of a yogurt or ice cream. And because in our country, අර belief එකක් තියෙනවානේ, මේ කෑම හීතලයි, මුං යට, බණ්ඩක්කා, කිරිබත්, මීකිරි, yogurt, and ice cream. So they just, and butter, like a සීතල කෑම. So if somebody, a child who is experiencing with these features of allergic rhinitis, and parents, they refrain of giving this food to their own child. And it is partly true. I will not resist for that statement, and are partly true. Not always. Because ඔක්කොම සීතල කෑම එක්කෙනෙකුට allergy කියනවා නෙමෙයි. Certain items might be a triggering factor for children, right? Let's say most of the time they come and say ice cream කෑවහම උගුර කසනවා. So that's quite true, but not always. So that ice cream could be a triggering food for their children with the allergic rhinitis. And the curd and yogurt and certain other food items like plantains, like anamalu ambun wage කෑම වර්ග. So it's a not always, and certain times, and for certain children, and food items could be a triggering factor to flare up their allergic rhinitis. Pollens of specific seasonal plants, hay fever, right? Now this is actually the name of the trees comes from not typical to Sri Lanka, hazel, willow, birch, olive, and most of these trees in the northern latitudes and the Mediterranean countries, the olive pollen. And in Western world, and it's a very common problem in their country, especially for adults, not only for children, the hay fever. And they know, and these trees are the common triggering factor for their hay fever, and even the weeds and the animal dander. So most of our children, they have soft toys, and so it gives a like a fabric dust, and most of them they love to pet their the cats, dogs, and ළඟ තුරුල් කරගෙන ඉන්නවා and සමහරලාට ඇඳෙත් ඉන්නවා. So these animal genders could be a triggering factor for their allergic rhinitis. And it's very important when you are just treating a child with the allergic rhinitis, not only prescribe the children, we just need to explore the history a little bit just to find out whether those children having any environmental risk factors like what we have mentioned a little while ago. Now it's quite interesting, and I started a child who had a severe allergic rhinitis to treat for treatment, and but the child was quite resistant to the treatment that I have given. And mother always come and say, "Doctor, no, it does not respond to my child, and I have given so many various types of drugs and the intranasal medications to control this allergic rhinitis. It seems that child did not respond to any of the treatment that I have given." Then I just need to ask the environmental risk factors from that child's environment, the child's environment, and the mother says, "I recently start machine ඇඳුම් මහන එකක් ගෙදර ඇතුළෙම පටන් ගත්තා. So I have about 4-5 workers in my home. So there are a lot of fabric dust in my house. So that probably would be the triggering factor for the child. And even though I have tried various types of medications to treat the child to control the features of allergic rhinitis, the environmental trigger factors are more strong than the treatment what I have offered to the child's symptoms, right? So it just happens, and sometimes children are under control with the symptoms, but they already just comes with the symptoms, and when we just inquire the environmental factors, they say recently the house demolished and start constructions, and so there are a lot of the cement dust, wood dust around, and so child would had a flaring up of the symptoms because of these new environmental risk factors. What are the signs and symptoms of allergic rhinitis? It is runny nose, stuffy nose. Itching, where do they itch? Nose, eyes, ears, and palate. Now, of course, this palate is a very nasty area for children, and most of the mothers, they come and say, "My child does not have a very good sleep during the night time. They always, I get the sounds, උගුර පාදනවා, කාරනවා." So during the night time, so it's because of the itching of the palate. And the nasal congestion and the obstruction, due to that child would experience a mouth breathing or noisy breathing, and so they probably just need a prone position to sleep, or turn into a lateral side to get a comfortable sleep. They will get a quite uncontrolled sneezing, and sore throat or a scratchy throat, frequent cough, frequent headaches, red eyes, tearing, post-nasal drip, anosmia, earache, and constitutional symptoms due to these chemicals in the blood. You get a fatigue, sleepiness, and just always feel to sleep, and does not have an interest to play around or just study, and those are the constitutional symptoms the children would get. What is this post-nasal drip? Because of the stuffy nose and the blocked nose, they are getting all these secretions being collected inside these the sinuses, and ultimately they just slowly dripping over to the throat. So now what happens, what is the symptom the child would get because of the postnasal drop? So there is a frequent sneezing, frequent the sneezing and the congestion of the nose. There is a blockage in the nasal airway. So because of the block, they will not be able to clear the secretions properly. So all secretion that comes from above will collect in these sinuses, and gradually these sinuses, they just draining into the throat. So the child always, because of the dripping of these mucus into the throat, always just child starts to get a very brief cough but frequent, like always just trying to clear the throat because of this postnasal drip. Actually, it is very difficult to differentiate this with the habit cough, the postnasal drip and the habit cough. But my experience, what I feel, sometimes those who had the postnasal drip, even though we treat and cleared the symptom, they keep on just doing that cough as habit. So ultimately, it is not the true disease, but as a habit, they get with the habit cough. So it is very interesting, and it is very important to understand this entity of the postnasal drip. Otherwise, we would give the child thinking that it is a chronic cough or a wheeze, and unnecessary treatment and unnecessary duration of the treatment, and without understanding the proper mechanism of the symptoms. Fever usually doesn't associated with all these symptoms because it is just the allergy. You feel like a feverish, right? But actually, if you measure the temperature, the children won't have high temperature. But if you have a runny nose, kept on for a few days, it's going to be a very good media to attract viruses. Secondarily, the children might get a viral infections, then they will associate, and it will be associated with fever. Symptoms of allergic rhinitis. I just wanted to highlight these few pictures, and you can just see red, itchy, watery eyes. They just keep on rubbing these eyes, sneezing, congestion, and runny nose, and rubbing the nose is also there. Itchy or sore throat, and postnasal drip and cough. So just this diagram indicates the few areas that are affected by the disease, the allergic rhinitis, and what are the changes of those areas the children or adults would get because of the persistent symptoms of allergic rhinitis. So in the physical examination, you will get a quite diverse signs of during the physical examination. But to be honest, this allergic rhinitis patient, with the history, we just diagnose and give them a treatment, but we don't go for a detailed examination. But if you go for a detailed examination, you will be able to pick up very nice and very interesting physical signs on children. What is this allergic salute? Because of the itchy nose, child always rubbing the nose to upward direction. You call it a allergic salute. Now just imagine a child keep on doing this salute movement, allergic salute, rubbing the nose upward for years and years. What will happen? Right? They would get upward turn nose. They would get creases just above the A-line, what you call the lower part of the nose. Just above that part, you get the transverse creases, upturned nose. And you can see even the skin changes at the nares because of the frequent rubbing. So this is called the allergic salute. And with that, you get a deviation or perforation of the nasal septum as well. If you really examine the children with the allergic rhinitis, if you look at their nasal mucosa or the nasal passages, you won't get a single child with the equally placed nasal septum, right? Almost all those children, they have a deviated nasal septum to one side. කාගේවත් හරියට මැදින් දෙකට බෙදලා තියෙන්නේ නැහැ, just deviated to one side. So because of the frequent rubbing all these cartilages, they can just move and give in the deformity, right? And so it further aggravates the symptoms of these congestion because now the septum is moved to a one direction, and that particular direction, the nasal passage is very, very narrow, and in the presence of the congestion and the inflammation and the edema, and that side will get a more congested and a complete obstruction, leading to a sinusitis and even sometimes so many other complications in the sinuses. Eyes, injection and swelling of the palpebral conjunctiva. You call this prominent creases below the lower eyelid, it's the Dennis-Morgan lines, and the allergic shyness, dark circles around eyes. Once I got a child, and that child around the both eyes, child had a actually it's an eczematous rash. I couldn't understand the reason because that is not the usual site the children would get the eczema. They can get with the creases or even on the cheek. But this child, all the, if you just look at the eyes, they actually, that was a complaint made by the mother. Mother says, හැමදාම මේක හොඳ වෙන්නේ බෙහෙත් කරනවා හැමදාම මේ ඇස් දෙක වටේම rash එකක්. So now I actually couldn't understand the reason for this eczematous lesion around the both eyes. It was symmetrically, nicely the involved both eye area. And when I inquire the story, mother says, she got a severe allergic rhinitis, and I have seen it's a frequent rubbing of the eyes. So that, of course, just created the changes of the skin around the eyes and leading to an eczematous. Was a very rare incident, and most of these children they get allergic shyness. Now if you look at this, you will be able to see the dark area around the eyes, the circles around the eyes, that are allergic shyness. And nasal creases, you can see, just see the nasal creases because of the salute movement, and you are getting the nasal creases here, right? And this is again just nicely showing the transverse crease on the nose, right? And this is the inside the nose. You can see like a balls. They are not actually the polyps. They are the turbinates, swollen turbinates, and just mimic as a polyps, but they can even get the polyps. And so the grape-like structure inside the mucosa. If you look at their nose, and you will be able to see that pale color mucosa and like a grape-like structures inside the nose, and those are the actually loose or the mucosa appears as folds or a grape-like structure. And this is the oropharynx. If you look at, because of the thick turbinates, they look like a cobblestone in streaks of lymphoid tissues on the posterior pharynx because of the swollen turbinates. And in addition to that, they might have the chronic allergic rhinitis children, they might have malocclusion of the teeth, tonsillar hypertrophy, and high arch palate, and middle ear effusion. So the name allergic rhinitis disease is just a quite simple illness, but just see if it goes as a chronic illness, the impact the children are getting, the malocclusion of teeth, tonsillar hypertrophy, high arch palate, and middle ear effusions. Many people with allergic rhinitis also have asthma, allergic conjunctivitis, and atopic dermatitis. This has a significant genetic component, and we have seen a positive family history. If the parents having allergic rhinitis, eczema, or asthma, and their children having a higher risk of getting those allergic symptoms, right? And so this goes in the family, and genetic component is there. And this, it shows the combination of those allergy or atopic disorders. The allergic rhinitis can go with the sinusitis, asthma, effusion, upper respiratory tract infection, and the nasal polyposis. Those things, those patients who get in the allergic rhinitis might easily, as a complication, they can get sinusitis, they can get nasal polyposis, they can get the otitis media with the effusion or a glue, and they can easily attract viruses to cause upper respiratory tract infection, and they even can have asthma. And it's important to understand this. I think that slide, I will just move over to this slide. This is allergic march, or you call it an atopic march, right? Now, if you are just taking to considering all disorders of allergy that we see in children, it could be food intolerance. You are starting cow's milk, child keeps on vomiting, or they can get a bloody colitis. So, or eggs keep on vomiting. So, there are food intolerance. then they can get the atopic dermatitis. They can come with the creases, itchy rashes, or even the cheeks, itchy rashes, and then they can have asthma, and then they can get the allergic rhinitis, and they can get the drug allergy or acute idiopathic urticaria. We don't know the entity, but it is usually comes again with children with the atopic. Right now, this is the allergy part. Now, what it nicely mentioned, early ages, they start with the atopic dermatitis, which is shown in the purple color, and the white color, the gastrointestinal, that probably not going to a very peak level like the atopic dermatitis, right? And then later on, they get the asthma. As you all know, you mentioned it as a childhood asthma. So it comes to a peak around at the age of 6-7 years, and then goes on, or else it probably can come into a zero level because it's a childhood asthma. But just see, when it comes to allergic rhinitis, it slowly comes up, but it will never go down. It can sustain. Very few patients will free of disease in adult age, but most of the patients who develop allergic rhinitis during their childhood will have a persistent symptoms up to their adulthood. So atopic dermatitis will come down, gastrointestinal symptoms will come down, asthma also will come into a plateau at one stage, but this rhinitis will go up to adulthood, giving all the troubles in the life. Sorry about this slide. This again shows that this purple color one shows atopic dermatitis, right? The seed comes down, and blue color line shows the food intolerance. So this is very peak atopic dermatitis, and you may have seen this. Children, they usually with the first year of life, they are having the atopic dermatitis, but they comes to by about 4-5 age, it's just going to be 0. And food intolerance also, just they are just getting it little tolerance later age. Asthma, this color just asthma, the yellow color just going into a peak and then gradually comes into a plateau. And the green line, allergic rhinitis. So just see the waves and just go on. So if you just get the later age adolescents, allergic rhinitis is the most troubling allergic disorder. Diagnosis. Diagnosis usually based on medical history. Sometimes you do not need a detailed examination of a child, though it is interesting to examine and pick up some physical signs. It is based on medical history and the family history. For the diagnosis, you can do allergic skin prick test or a patch test. Or you can do the fluorescent enzyme immunoassay, allergen-specific IgE antibodies. It quantifies the IgE level for a particular antigen. Now, I will show you first this one. What is this? This is the skin test. This is the patch test. So you will be easily picked up what is the allergen. This child is particularly allergic to different types of allergens to inject, antigens to inject, and just see the response, and thereby you will be able to detect the real agent. And this is skin prick, this is patch, right? Now, what is this fluorescent enzyme immunoassay? Allergen specific IgE antibody. Now, if you think that your patient is allergic to cow's milk, if you think your child is allergic to egg antigen, you can do the specific IgE antibodies for that particular food item or that particular whatever the item, then you can do the specific IgE. Prawns, you can ask for an allergen specific IgE antibody for prawn, allergen specific IgE antibody for cow's milk, allergen specific IgE antibody for eggs, have and even animal dander, and you can even dust mites. So if you think the child is, but there are thousands of allergens, you can name those, but you can't ask to go for a all those antigen, you need to understand or identify few specific, or you guess few specific antigens, and then you can ask for a IG antibody. There are panels available. Actually, certain laboratories in Sri Lanka, and they are doing outdoor allergen panel, indoor allergen panel, food items allergen panels. So very interesting, but mind you, they are very expensive. If you want to go for an outdoor allergen panel, nearly cost about 30,000 rupees, but they will test for about 20 odd allergens outdoor. Indoors also same. And even if you think fruit allergy, you can test for fruit items. If you think some vegetable or fish, you can test for those items. You can just, but it's very important for you to have some idea or some just assumption of what type of a food item this patient is allergic to. Otherwise, you can't ask for all, right? And so that is very interesting, that because you can understand the yeah, even for the management. And now I got few children, and parents believe that child is allergic to eggs, and they have never given eggs to that child. So I actually could get this test done and prove that your child is no more allergic to eggs. You can freely give egg. So even the cow's milk, you can do the same thing if the parents believe that my child is allergic to that particular food item. You can either prove or exclude both. And total serum Ig actually is no value. You can just demonstrate the high IgE level, and eosinophil counts also not specific, and just you can show that there is a high eosinophil count. And MRI and radiography, and they help to detect the structural abnormalities and the comorbid condition such as sinusitis, polyps, and adenoid hypertrophy that comes as a complications of the secondary to allergic rhinitis. There is another entity, local allergic rhinitis, that is IgE antibodies produced in the nose only. They don't actually, if you do the investigation, the systemically, the child does not have any symptoms, or child does not have any positive blood test, but they are just having the local response. Only the IgE antibodies are confined to the local mucosa of the nose. What is treatment? Environmental control measures and the allergen avoidance is the best, and no doubt on that, and that is the best out of all. And antihistamine, you can use antihistamine orally, you can use antihistamine nasally, and you can even use antihistamine eye drops. So what is oral? Now this antihistamine, you have a different antihistamines available in the market, and it's very difficult to get the classification. Certain book says it is first generation, second generation, third generation. In the some classification, it says first and the second generation. I actually asked one of my friends, the pharmacology department, they also couldn't give an exact answer for this, because there are no fixed classification for this antihistamine. It's still developing because new antihistamines comes over to the market. What is first generation ones are our old style ones like Piriton, diphenhydramine, cyproheptadine, and promethazine, Phenergan. Those are the first generation. Second generation ones are the cetirizine, loratadine, fixofenadine, acylastine, levocetirizine, and desloratadine. But certain book says the fixofenadine, levocetirizine, and desloratadine into the third generation antihistamine. I will show you a nice diagram on that. And the nasal also, you can use this antihistamine orally, and you can use antihistamine nasally. Nasal sprays to relieve symptoms. It gives a very quick recovery, because you know the histamine is the major component that gives a higher secretions and the edema, so quick recovery. And ophthalmic, again, you can use the antihistamine eye drops. The classification of H1 antagonist, that is histamine, H1 basically for nasal, H2 antagonist basically for the GIT. So H1, what they say this diagram say first generation chlorpheniramine, diphenhydramine, and hydroxyzine, promethazine, they all. And second generations, they say this is actually sedating, and this is non-sedating or less sedating compared to the first generation. And cetirizine, desloratadine, fixofenadine, and loratadine. But when it comes to another classification, and sorry for this blurring, and I couldn't get a very good the visual field on this, the clear picture on this. And this antihistamine, they say first generation, second generation, and then they come to the third generation. So they say third generations are the fixofenadine, levocetirizine, and the desloratadine. So actually the fixo, desloratadine, and levocetirizine, they came recently to the market. So they categorize it as a third generation. So actually, when it goes up to the generation, like a first generation more sedative, second generation less sedative, and further least sedative is the third generation antihistamine. And then the second option to treat this allergic rhinitis is steroids. You can use steroid intranasal. This is effective and safe, and even effective without oral drugs. You can understand because it's target the site directly, like your inhale corticosteroid in asthma. You are giving intranasal steroids to the local site, right? It takes several days to act, and so must be taken continuously for several weeks. But I know it is very harmful if you just use it for months and months, because it can create changes in the nasal mucosa, right? So I think probably month. Now I have seen some physicians, they use for 2 months. I think it is better to confine to a 1 month treatment of this intranasal steroid. Oral steroids also, there is a value, but it reduces the nasal inflammation, but the use is limited because of the short duration of the effect and its bad side effects. And then decongestant like ephedrine, oxymetazoline, cyclometazoline, and it should not be used for a long period because of you are getting the rebound effect, and then nasal congestion. You call it rhinitis medicamentosa. That is a rebound nasal congestion. You are just keep on using these decongestants, and you are getting the rebound nasal congestion. Sometimes you get more symptoms when you stop those, and so it is not good to use for a longer period. So steroid you can use for long, but not the other topical decongestant. Leukotriene receptor antagonist has a good place of treating allergic rhinitis, and the allergy immunotherapy desensitization, there is a good place of this, but I don't know whether we in our setup we don't use it, desensitization. I think it's a developing field in our country. And so type of symptoms, episodic symptoms, oral nasal histamine, antihistamine with oral or nasal decongestant if needed. Mild symptoms, moderate symptom, you can use intranasal steroids, leukotriene receptor antagonist, H1 antihistamine. Even moderate symptoms, severe symptoms, again, you can use those. In addition to that, allergen immunotherapy is there. Now, anti-leukotrienes, few slides on anti-leukotrienes. Anti-leukotrienes is a drug which functions as a leukotriene-related enzyme inhibitor or a receptor inhibitor. We don't have drugs here for the enzyme inhibitor, but we in our country there is popular the leukotriene receptor antagonist, that is montelukast. Tafrilucast is the name given for the enzyme inhibitor, but we have the leukotriene receptor antagonist, that is montelukast. Cysteine leukotrienes are products of arachidonic acid metabolism and released from various cells including mast cells and eosinophils. And these cysteine leukotriene receptors found in airways, smooth muscle cells, airway macrophages, and on other pro-inflammatory cells. Leukotriene receptors LTC4, LTD4 are approximately 1,000 times more potent than histamine. That is a very important statement here. So we probably recently there is a place for a leukotriene antagonist to treat these allergic disorders like asthma, allergic rhinitis. I think it's because this statement says how important the leukotriene antagonists are, because when compared to histamine, it is 1,000 times more potent, LTC4 and the LTD4, that leukotriene, right? This slightly just showing that is icosanoid, how it forms to arachidonic acid. This is the cyclooxygenase pathways to form prostaglandins, and this is the lipoxygenase path to form leukotriene, right? I don't want to explain this one. You can just go through, and it's very important to learn this this graph, how it forms from phospholipids to arachidonic acid, and they are by in two directions. One is a lipoxygenase and other one is a cyclooxygenase, because this prostaglandins, prostacyclin, thromboxanes from this area gives all symptoms related to allergic disorders, especially in asthma and allergic rhinitis. On the other hand, this pathway, the leukotrienes, just giving the other symptoms, right? So there is a clinical trial in progress that doing by myself and Dr. Gayani Liyanage from Faculty of Medicine, University of Rohana, effectiveness of oral montelukast versus cetirizine in the management of allergic rhinitis in 6 to 12-year-old children present with asthma clinic at the Faculty of Medicine, University of Rohana, a randomized double-blind controlled clinical trial. And I have enrolled 188 children into these two groups. During this COVID pandemic, even though the patients were less in number, within 3 months, I could enroll 188 patients to my study. And it shows us how frequent and how common these symptoms in children. Actually, it was challenging me to find out patients, and because less number of patients, they came to us, to our rooms, because of the pandemic. But not that hard. It was within 3 months I could enroll 186 patients. Now we are the process of collecting the all data, and about 120 patients, they have completed taking their treatment. I have to just collect the data about another 35 to 40 children, and they are just completing their 3rd month of treatment, and after that I will be able to analyze the data and represent. And then we did another study, oral montelukast versus inhaled steroid for mild persistent asthma among 1 to 5-year-old children. And in that results, what actually we got, because those children who enrolled in this study, most of the asthma children, they had the allergic rhinitis features. And so the montelukast had additional significant benefit in controlling rhinitis symptoms. Right? So that is the effect of montelukast. Home remedies, you can use the air conditioner instead of opening your windows, dehumidifier, high efficiency particulate air filters, washing the sheet and blankets in hot water, and complication what they get, otitis media, acute or chronic sinusitis, frequent headaches, reduced productivity, facial disfigurement, inability to sleep, worsening of asthmatic symptoms, sleep disturbance or apnea, dental problems, palatal abnormalities, Eustachian tube dysfunction. Right. I'll just go through again. Dental problems caused by excessive breathing through the mouth, and palatal abnormalities again. Eustachian tube dysfunction, they can get a glue ear which requires grommet. Right? And so that's the end of the lecture.